All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It is Thursday, almost Tuesday. No, 2 days after Tuesday, but you know what that means, ladies and gentlemen. It is time to do the Tao now. We're reading from Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. And Dr. Wayne Dyer has had a big influence on my life. And before we get started, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say happy birthday to everyone out there who's had a birthday at some point this year, which would include everybody, including me today, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you for being here. It's a special week, special day. It's quite a bit that's gone on this week, as I mentioned in yesterday's Wednesday Wisdom video. But before I lose you, let me tell you about what we'll be talking about today. And it's the 40th verse of the Tao Te Ching. It's only 4 lines. Wayne Dyer titles his chapter on this 40th verse of the Tao Te Ching, Living by Returning and Yielding. Living by returning and yielding. And he always, not always, but a lot of the times in these chapters, might be every one, actually, now that I'm looking here, he always puts the idea of living in there. So whether it's living by yielding and returning, living wholeness, living within your own nature, living simplicity, living in obscurity. And so it goes through all of these different ideas, living beyond worldly pleasures, living the great way, living self-mastery, ladies and gentlemen. That was a great one. All of these, however, have been about self-mastery. And so living by returning and yielding. Interesting. What comes to mind when you think of returning and yielding? To me, it's like coming home and giving away all the treasures that you gained on your journey. Maybe not all of them, but hopefully you got yourself a nice beverage, ladies and gentlemen. I usually like to make myself some tea, and in the summer, I let it cool down till it's nice and cool, and then I drink the rest of the cup. But let's dive right into the 40th verse of the Tao Te Ching, ladies and gentlemen. Next week, I'll be back on Tuesday. So this is every now and then we got to switch things up to make it interesting around here. And I did do that short 40-something second video on Monday just to kind of see what the response would be. So if you liked that, if you want more of those, and I can do more of those, let me know and leave your thoughts in the comments below. And also, when I'm drinking these teas, as you can see, they have a little thing hanging there off the end of the bag. Forget what you call it. Just a little piece of paper connected to the string. And it always has little quotes on it, ladies and gentlemen. So the quote for today is, "You are unlimited." Unlimited, ladies and gentlemen. You are unlimited. So, before I ramble on anymore, once again, thank you for being here. Let's dive right into the 40th verse of the Tao Te Ching. Returning is the motion of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. The 10,000 things are born of being. Being is born of non-being. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That might be the simplest verse of the entire Tao that we've read so far. Going all the way back to the first verse, we're now at the 40th verse. Returning is the motion of the Tao. So the motion of the Tao is this. I'm thinking of water here and how I think we may have described this in a previous episode, which a lot of these themes and ideas repeat, which is good. So it's a new, every time it's a new way we could think of and grasp and begin to understand and connect with these great ideas and this great wisdom. So the water, when you think of water and, evaporates, goes up into the clouds, comes over the land, either falls on the mountains or on the plains and turns into rivers and goes back down, returning to the source, to the ocean. And so returning is the motion of the Tao. And remember, Tao is often described by Lao-tzu, or it seems to be described by Lao-tzu, as nature, or the overall activity of harmony and nature. And so this idea of returning, which we all do eventually, we return to the source. And so yielding then is the way of the Tao. When I think of yielding in this sentence, I'm thinking of not dominating or not controlling, not pushing, not forcing, yielding, like allowing or flowing, going with. And then the 10,000 things, remember, he always speaks about the 10,000 things as being all the things in the, this physical material world that we have, that our ego minds have come to see as separate and not oneness or wholeness, which everything really is, despite seeming separate from our perspective. Or maybe it's this duality nature. If you think of a magnet, you have a positive and a negative, which creates the one, the whole, the field itself. And so if you look at the magnetic field itself, you have this center point that is the connection between, here, let me put the bookmark in here so I can show you the toroidal shape, but it is the connection in the center there. It is the whole. And so that's, the 10,000 things could be the duality of the two, the opposites, or, everything that we see that seems to be separate, that is part of this oneness, are born of being. So when we are being here in the physical world, we create the 10,000 things with our mind. They are born, 10,000 things, everything we put the labels on out here, comes out of us being here. We create it with our minds. The 10,000 things are born of being. And being, us being here, comes from non-being, or the source. Non-being to me does not mean non-existence, because if we've gotten to any of these philosophies thus far, going from non-being to being would imply, what would it imply for you, ladies and gentlemen? For me, it implies that there is something beyond being in this area that is described as non-being. There is maybe not life as we think of it, physical life and mortality, because, there are setbacks to physical life, despite the great beauty and lessons we go through. But if you could throw off the, robes of your mortality and the struggles of your physical form and continue to exist in pure consciousness, how does that feel? So this to me is what is being described here in this 40th verse of the Tao Te Ching: returning, yielding, or allowing and flowing, coming from the world of separation, which comes from us being here in the physical world of duality. And then going back to the first word, returning to non-being, or where we are before we're here. It's like we come from nowhere to now here, which is something that Wayne Dyer has also taught me. And all you do is you switch the space between N-O-W-H-E-R-E or N-O-W-H-E-R-E. Now, here, and nowhere. And I think we should stop being afraid of that nowhere, that source place, because we can go there. All right. That was pretty cool, ladies and gentlemen. Let's dive right into what Dr. Wayne Dyer has to say about this idea of living by returning and yielding. He begins by saying, I see one of the greatest teachings of the Tao Te Ching here in the shortest of its 81 passages. If you can master the wisdom in these 4 lines, you'll be as happy, content, and centered in the Tao as any sage. With the first word returning, you're being nudged toward an understanding of the basic principle of your existence. Without needing to leave your body, you're asked to die while alive. And that's something I've spoken about before on this channel, ladies and gentlemen. Dying while we are still alive. And to me, that means escaping the trap. And I've told that story before. Hopefully you caught it. If you didn't, leave a comment and tell me to tell the story about dying while we're still alive and escaping the trap, because it's a good little story about a hunter and a bird that it's awesome. Talking bird. Love that story. Anyways, while we're asked to die while still alive, you can accomplish this by realizing that you're one of the 10,000 things that has appeared in this world of form. What Lao-tzu is expressing here in the 40th verse is what contemporary quantum physics has confirmed many centuries later. That particles do not come from particles at the tiniest subatomic level. Instead, when the infinitesimally small specks are collided in a particle accelerator, there's nothing remaining but waves of particleless energy. So the particles, and this is what I've talked about before in the magic of manifesting, is that there's something interesting about going from waves to particles, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not just a mystical idea, wishy-washy hoping that we can take the waves of our thoughts, of our mind activity, because, frequencies are waves, and our thoughts are frequencies and waves, and particles come from waves, ladies and gentlemen. And even in quantum physics, this has been confirmed. So, there's nothing remaining but waves of particleless energy. Wayne Dyer continues, in order for you, a much bigger speck, to form, you must have come from an originating spirit, or wave, or force, or whatever you want to call that universal intelligence, universal animating, energetic intelligence. It's hard to describe, but maybe that's a good way. Yeah. Remaining, in order for us, a much bigger speck, we must have come from this force. Now, Lao-tzu may have known nothing of quantum physics in the 6th century BC, but he was teaching an essential truth even then. It's spirit that gives life. It's this animating force, the waves that create particles. So to truly live out our destiny as a piece of the originating Tao, we must shed our ego and return to spirit. Or you can wait until your body dies and make your return trip at that time. But we can do it, what he's saying here, while we're still alive. We can connect to our source while we're here instead of waiting till we're nowhere. I don't even know. Now here and nowhere is just a good anagram, but giving the name nowhere still allows people to have this idea of non-existence or nothingness. Like, that is the ultimate falsity, I think, thinking that after we die, it'll just be black, nothing forever. Doesn't make sense. And in fact, fearing that also doesn't make sense, because if you have no conscious experience of that nothing forever, which is impossibility in my mind, after all that I've studied and learned over the last decade, is like, anyway, sorry, you know where I was going with that, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Lao-tzu is telling us about this. And, 6 centuries after Lao-tzu dictated the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching, the man who wrote a huge percentage of the New Testament also spoke of whence we came, formerly called Saul of Tarsus. Wow, I'm impressed by Wayne Dyer. You know, it's not a lot of people that know about Saul of Tarsus. And if you know of whom I'm speaking, then you've probably done your research already. Some would call him a false apostle, but that's a different story. It's one that I do like. But so anyways, let me close this message here. It keeps telling me I'm running out of disk space, but we're just going to keep rolling on, ladies and gentlemen. So if this randomly stops at some random point, then you know what happened. But so Saul of Tarsus, he became known as Saint Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, or the original no, I'm kidding, different story. In his letter to the people of Ephesus, he wrote, "You were created to be like God, and so you must please him and be truly holy." And see, that's a separation there. See how they trick you? You were created to be like God. Oh, nice. We're all oneness. And then he goes, oh, yeah, but you must please him. It's like, wait a minute. If we were created to be like God, then what is there in any purpose in pleasing some idea of separation and disconnection? I don't know. That's just where I've gotten to. But everybody has their own ideas, and I respect everybody in their own ideas. Some people are at different points along the path. But so that was Ephesians 4:24. You must please him and be truly holy. I just like the part where you were created to be like God and be truly holy. This is an invitation, Wayne Dyer continues, for all of us to return to what we came from, which is loving, kind, and not exclusive in any way. How is this accomplished? According to St. Paul and Lao-tzu, who emphasizes this point in many of the verses of the Tao Te Ching, you do so by yielding your ego, surrendering, and being humble, allowing that yielding. Interesting. To that end, in his letter to the people of Corinth, or Corinth, Corinth, St. Paul quotes Jesus directly. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. See, there is a paradox. And I think that's talking about the allowing and the yielding, not trying to control and force, but rather connecting to and flowing with. This taking the lower level, like the source, like the water. Remember, the ocean always flows back to its source. So it has the control, but it doesn't force it over it. It's at the lower level. Paul then goes on to say himself, therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. This is why, for Christ's sake, can't believe they use that. Isn't that a blaspheme or whatever they call it? For Christ's sake, yeah, taking the name in vain. But it says there, this is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness, in insults and hardships and persecutions and difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. And that's a paradox there. It's a confusing one, and I'm impartial in my own agreeance to the English translations of these scriptures that were being given here, because when you go back to the original Hebrew and Greek translations, you find that the words meant entirely different things. The message is much more spiritual and much less physical. And then as you go over to the English version, you find that there's a spiritual message, and then there's this message of separation and control. And it's odd. You go, huh? Somebody was talking about spiritual connection here, and then other people are talking about separation and control. Interesting. Wonder who did the editing along the way, ladies and gentlemen. But that goes back to the very first video on this channel. And so if you want to get an idea of what I'm talking about and how to do the research for yourself, please check out the first video and a couple of the videos in the beginning of this channel. Now, continuing on today's reading, yielding, indeed yielding, is the way of the Tao, as well as the key to an uplifted existence, according to virtually all spiritual texts that have survived over the centuries. When you truly change the way you think about all of life, see, this is the main theme of everything that I do. And I think it's the most important teaching in life for anybody to truly grasp and to truly understand, is when you change the way that we, like, real in a deep level, like, you got to do this, ladies and gentlemen. And I know you'll get this. I know you'll love this. Is when we can truly change the way that we think about all of our lives and all of life itself, the world begins to look very different for us. You begin seeing everyone around and everything as if they have round trip tickets. That's an interesting way to put it. You know that they all arrived from spirit, and you know that they all must return. All that composes also decomposes, and whether anyone else understands that isn't important to you. You find the awareness that life on earth is a death sentence to be a liberating and amusing viewpoint. See, mostly it's grim, dark, macabre for most people. But you're choosing to live every day, each moment that you have, and as much as you can, as the non-being aspect of yourself. And this is something I even think to myself when I'm sitting on break at work, or when I'm just doing whatever it is I'm doing. Like right now, I've reminded myself to think of it. And it's like, every moment is our entire life. And so, and, you know, you'd be like, what do you mean, Chase? Every moment is our entire life. Our entire life is not just a moment. And I would say the opposite. Every moment is where we are in our entire life. And if we're in the moment, and if we're not living in the past and creating the future from here, if what drives our life is the energy that we create in the moment, in the present moments of our lives, then our entire life comes down to, even if we do judge our life based on our past and what might happen in our future, which is a very separated, earthly ego mind perspective, which is what society has crammed down our throats or crammed down our mind. Even if we're from that perspective, we still have this. It's tough to put it simply. Let me continue, because I think you have an idea of where I was going. And so every moment is our entire life. So if we don't, if even we don't have a moment-to-moment perspective, we will realize eventually, when our life is filled up with shitty moments that we chose to create, because I'm a firm believer. No, I know. I don't just believe, ladies and gentlemen. I know that we choose every moment of our lives. Maybe not the circumstances, but we choose how we react to the circumstances and what we're going to do with them. And once again, when we change the way that we think about all of life, the circumstances that are thrown at us might not change, but the way that we see them begins to change. Now, rambling again, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a fun one. I hope you're getting value. If you are, be sure to subscribe, because that'll help give you notifications of my newer videos, as well as push these videos up in the algorithm, so hopefully they'll get to more people that might not discover them naturally. Now, as being of spirit, it's interesting what he was describing here. This, we're choosing to live every day, each moment that we have, as much as you can, And so making our life by making each moment great. Each moment is our entire life. I love that ramble. Okay. As a being of spirit, Wayne Dyer continues, you decide to use your return ticket while you're still here in the physical form by keeping yourself in precisely the same loving status that you occupied before entering this world of boundary separation. As you take your return journey, you not only get to lose your ego identification card, you have the added bonus of regaining the power of your source, which is the all-creating power of the universe. You merge into the oneness of a being who dissolves ego concerns. And the world that you now see is perfect and infinite in nature. There is no more worry, anxiety, or identification with your possessions, ladies and gentlemen. We're a free person. And Dr. Joe Dispenza has been talking about this in what I've been listening to lately. He goes, you do this kind of meditation in your mind to where you become nobody. So you remove your identification of who you are and, you know, that kind of stuff. Then you go to nowhere, no thing. So you get rid of your attachments to things. No play, you know, he goes through all of these, whatever it is that we have built up. And that's an interesting practice. You get down to pure freedom and source connection. And that's where real healing can take place, according to his studies and his evidence that he's created. If you've never heard Dr. Joe Dispenza, check him out. Even pause the video now and come back later, because that's probably more important, discovering Joe Dispenza, than maybe this is. But we'll see. I'll leave that up for you to judge. Let's continue, ladies and gentlemen. Now, ego identification, bonus, regaining the power of your source, all creating power of the universe. Emerge into oneness, yes. No more worry, anxiety, or identification with your possessions. You're a free person. You're a spiritual being, first, last, and always. This is what I feel, Wayne Dyer says, that Lao-tzu is telling us in this brief yet profound teaching of the 40th verse of the Tao Te Ching. So, and he was saying that to lead into these next two suggestions in a way that we can practically apply all of this ideas into our life. So what he feels that Lao-tzu is telling us in this profound yet brief verse of the Tao Te Ching is, number one, monitor your direction, emphasizing returning and yielding. And so what that means is mentally make an effort to access every step you're taking in all aspects of your life. Interesting. To assess, I think I said access. Mentally make an effort to assess every step you're taking in all aspects of your life, including your career, your relationships, and your health in terms of directionality. That is, ask yourself, so what he's really saying here is ask yourself, in which way am I truly moving? Am I getting away from my originating place, or am I returning to it? As you make this assessment, you can be more forthright about returning to rather than moving away from the Tao. A resolution to exercise or to eat more nutritious foods is a step taking you back to the well-being from which you originated. So we're not talking about trying to escape from death or going back to death on purpose. If you're getting that, you're missing the concept here, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about a spiritual existence beyond our physical life, and it being fantastic and wonderful. And so we're talking about that place of wholeness and love and well-being from which we originated. A decision to suspend your ego, Wayne Dyer continues, and take an interest in another person is a movement of moving back to the Tao. A determination to be generous rather than hoard is a choice to be in the return motion. All these actions come from your thinking first about the direction in which you are moving, away from your originating spirit or back to it. Fascinating. I've never heard that described that way. That was an interesting little breakdown. And number 2 is surrender. This is what yielding is all about, Wayne Dyer says. Recognize that your little ego does nothing and that the Tao creates everything, including you. As I sit and write these words, Wayne Dyer says, in my magical writing space, which I wish I could create, ladies and gentlemen, but those are thoughts for a different time. In his magical writing space, maybe all spaces are magical, and I've just yet to be enlightened enough to see it. See? See? That's a key thought. Now, I know that I don't own what mysteriously appears on the paper, Wayne Dyer says. I have surrendered. I know that God writes all the books, composes all the music, and erects all the buildings. I bow to this all-creating power, while it appears that all of the 10,000 things are born of the world of beingness. As I think about it more, the beingness itself came from non-being. Just as the verse said, ladies and gentlemen, as I think about it more, the beingness itself came from non-being. It is to this glorious state of non-being, spirituality, or the Tao, that I yield. I encourage you to do the same, Wayne Dyer says, and then peacefully observe how it all flows together perfectly. And then finally, at the end of each of these chapters, he gives us another way that we can practically put this wisdom into application or action into our lives. And he titles it Do the Tao Now. So this is what you're waiting for, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Tuesday, Do the Tao Now, Tuesday Tao, to Thursday now. We'll be back Tuesday Tao, whatever. Wow. I love to mess around with a little rhyme a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. But do the Tao now. Strategically place a picture of a yield sign. I did not expect him to say that. Frequently found as a traffic device within your field of vision. Each time you look at this sign, use it as a reminder for you to return to the Tao. Return to the flowing. At least once each day, rather than continuing a disagreement, cede on the spot. I think what he means is give up there on your argument and agree to disagree, or whatever it be. In the midst of talking about your own achievements or basking in the light of your ego, stop and become an instant listener. The more you yield each day, the more you return to the peace and harmony of the Tao. Boom to knowledge, ladies and gentlemen. I love every single one of those, and I always love how they finish so fantastically, so wonderfully. The more you yield each day, the more you return to the peace and harmony of the Tao. Big round of applause. I'm glad I was able to make it today, ladies and gentlemen. I was debating whether or not I wanted to, but I think I did. I think showing up is a skill that has to be practiced and worked on over time. And I've heard that one of the great things that leads to any form of success, ladies and gentlemen, is dedication, commitment, and the ability or the art of showing up. And today was fantastic, a fantastic lesson on living by returning and yielding. And since the verse was so short, I think I'll say it one more time again here. Returning is the motion of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. The 10,000 things are born of being. Being is born of non-being. Let that sit and sink in and meditate on that one, ladies and gentlemen, because next Tuesday, we'll be looking at living beyond appearances. And doesn't that go so well with yesterday's Wednesday wisdom about soul love and loving beyond just physical appearances. So the same kind of theme back to back in both of our teachings, ladies and gentlemen, which is fantastic. And once again, I'd like to thank everybody that takes time out of their life to spend here with me and that takes time to leave comments, because it really is important to me. It means a lot to me, and I really appreciate you. And I hope you hear that, and I hope you know that. And I'd like to kind of find a way to reward those that interact with me on these videos and in the comments section. You know, give back to the small amount of people that do take time out of their day to, spend with me and Dr. Wayne Dyer and all the wonderful authors and poets of the wisdom of the ages, as well as Lao-tzu and the wisdom of the Tao. And so remember, ladies and gentlemen, seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment. Seek to discover the hidden wisdom of the ages and begin to make happiness the way, the activity that you bring to life. Because when happiness is what we bring to life, no longer the goal that we're, so long striving for, I'll be happy when I get there, then that goal becomes irrelevant because we're already happy, ladies and gentlemen. We're already there. And then the entire journey is wonderful. Once again, thank you so much. Love you, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure to expand the description below the video here and check out the links I have to the book, C60 Purple Power, which is a great antioxidant, which I have been taking for about 3 years now. It's fantastic. No news is good news. That's the way I always think of it. But so anyways, also check out my landscape paintings, because I'd like to, spread some of the beauty of nature. And those are available for you there, ladies and gentlemen, if you got a blank wall or an empty spot that you need to fill. So thank you so much. And I really hope you got something out of this. I really hope I give you value. If you did, boom, subscribe, like, and I'll be back next week with some more wonderful wisdom of the ages and Tuesday Tao, and maybe some even shorter videos. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, focus on this idea of when you can begin to see this experience in a new way, you can begin to experience in a new way. And it's something really worth pondering on, because when you can get there, the things that used to give you so much trouble before seem to just float on by. All right. Love you, ladies and gentlemen. Until next week. Stay frosty.